So that was a deep part of it to me that I could feel the relationship with the Orisha. I could absolutely feel the relationship with my Egungun. Um, I know when my grandfather died, I I was devastated to like you responsible for you, not the devil made me do it or you're
Right.
responsible for you. And
Right.
that can feel overwhelming sometimes. I understand the propensity to be like, I don't want to be responsible for me. I don't want to do it. I don't want to
Right.
do it.
Ekabo, and welcome to another episode of Talking Ifá with me, Babalawo Salako. So today I have the pleasure of having Akanke Washington, who has a lot of doctor and everything else in front of her and behind her name at this point in time, who's been in this tradition for a long, long time and has a lot of history. And so we want to get some of her stories because I know they'll be very, very interesting. So let's talk. Greetings. I'm Babalawo Salako. I was initiated as a priest of Ifa and Obatala in Nigeria in 2006, and I've been practicing the Ifa Orisha religion for over 30 years now. My mission is simple: to help those who are new to the religion or lost in the religion. So if that's you, then buckle up and join me. This is Talking Ifa.
Thank you, Baba.
Okay, so first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself and what brought you into this tradition, a little bit of your history.
So to be honest, uh, I didn't come to this tradition looking for spirituality. I was young. I was at Howard. And I have to say, before I started at Howard, I think this part matters. My grandmother used to take me to the library to see Pippi Longstocking movies. And the library had a section on religion. And I had read all the books on religion, on Islam, the Baka Kavita, all of these things. And fast forward, I get to Howard, and I remember distinctly being in Douglas Room 116, and there was a lecturer, Zach Kondo, and he mentioned African religions. And my mind flashed back to that bookshelf, and there was not one book on an African religion.
Mm,
And it disturbed me to the core of my soul that it didn't even occur to me that it was missing,
mm,
right? It didn't, when I looked at the whole world religion section, it nothing stood out that said there's not one book on an African religion. And in my
mm,
mind at the time, I considered like Islam to be the African religion. But this professor talked about African religions and that it would be difficult to understand African philosophy and African worldview without taking into account African religious spiritual systems and their cosmologies. So my initial quest was to just understand African philosophy and to really understand why it wasn't on that shelf.
mm,
And that was the entryway. And that so I went, being in DC, DC was heavily Akan. So I had researched the Akan system, and through there, somehow or another, I was introduced to Ifa through Chief Dio Ibaye, and that was my introduction.
mm. Okay, and so you came in more on a curiosity research side. It wasn't any traumatic event. Some people come in with trauma and they have health issues and somebody takes them to get a divination, etc.
Yeah, no, not at all. I was curious. I wanted to know. I wanted to know, I specifically wanted to understand how African people imagined or viewed the world before the interruption, before the Ma'afa. Those were my first steps, right? And of course, Like the spirituality just came so much later for me. Even the divination, I'm like, scientifically, how does this work? But so even the divinations that I experienced, it was way more of a research project for me initially. But then I have a pivot, right?
Hmm.
I experience the religion. It's one thing to research it, it's another thing to experience it. So then I started to experience it, and I'm thankful that I didn't grow up in a dogmatically religious family, even though my family is religious. You know, my mom is a pastor, my grandmother 10 toes down in the church. I grew up in the church, but I did not grow up with a family saying, this is the only way, right? And so I was able to explore and make decisions about what made sense to me. Um, and it was a pivotal moment in my life. Um, Phyllis Hyman committed suicide. And
Mm.
I was teaching, and it was my first, I was teaching in Harlem. And I was devastated that this woman, who was statuesque, beautiful, rich, talented, committed suicide. And I'm first year teacher in Harlem with people with all the problems. And so, you know, like my young mind was like, if she couldn't hold it together, how we all holding it together?
Mm.
And I talked to a Christian person about my devastation. And what they said to me was, God never gives you more than you can handle. And that explanation was so not true in what I was experiencing. This woman committed suicide. Um, I had students going through all the things. Lots of people were having more than they could handle, right?
Hmm.
And then there was IFA that has very pragmatically, there's good and bad, and you're going to experience all of it. And so there was something about that pragmatic advice. I didn't have to, it reflected the world as I was experiencing. I didn't have to make the world fit into something that didn't make sense to me.
Mm.
The way in which Ifa describes the world, where there are ajagun, there are bad things that happen. I don't have to make the world fit to a God is good all the time.
Right. I think a lot of people go through that same struggle because most of us come up, like you said, in the church, Christianity here, some, depending on where you live, Islam, but most of the country you've been exposed to at a minimum, people in your family. And there's also the rejection that or that a lot of people get if their people are strictly Christian and you go this route. So what so when you said experience the religion, you experienced the spirituality, what was that like?
It was baby steps. You know, my first ritual was through the Lukumi system. So my first ritual, I received my lekes, but then after that, you receive your warriors, and in Lukumi, at least the way in which my godfather at that time trained me, you have to, you know, give obi or you know, divine with the coconut with eshu every Monday. And I did that for years. And I actually developed a relationship with the deities themselves, and I could feel that relationship, right?
Mm.
I could definitely feel the relationship. So that was a deep part of it to me that I could feel the relationship with the Orisha. I could absolutely feel the relationship with my Egungun. Um, I know when my grandfather died, I I was devastated. I was, you know, in New York. He died on Christmas Day, and it was a snowy winter. And I just remember driving and feeling like the world didn't seem balanced anymore because I had lost my grandfather. It felt very uneven. And the first time I went to sit at my Egungun shrine, the peace that came over me from communicating with him and in that space, um, it just helped to usher the grief along. So when I had like those very visceral, real, embodied experiences, um, they chose me, right? They pulled me into the spiritual side of things. I wasn't necessarily seeking them. I didn't even know to seek it, right? But
Hmm.
I experienced it. I felt it. It is the comfort that I got from my Egungun altar when my grandfather died. And then, I have a practice now that I've developed over the years of getting divinations for my own personal reading of the year. So I get one in January. My birthday is in June. So I get one in June. I'm just so happens that that's like the beginning of the year and the middle of the year. And I've had years of watching those divinations play out for good or for bad. But yeah, it just makes me feel so good to think that we're not on this planet without help.
Mm.
you know, that
Right.
IA, the world that we know it, is difficult, it's hard. There are Ajaguna there, and that our ancestors developed tools to help usher us through.
That's great. That's great. Because that's what I tell people too. I had somebody just ask me the other day about that. And I said, look, for us, we accept help from a lot of different areas. And we kind of look at it the more the merrier, right? So we have our Gungun,
Mm-hmm.
we have the Orisha, we have our own personal Orisha, Ori, we have Egbe. Some people may say they even have general guardian spirits, but we can accept help from all of those. And it's not in conflict with our practice of our religion, right? It's not like, oh, well, you're sinning or you're doing this and that if you go to this or that.
Mm-hmm.
We accept help. We say, okay, we're a team. Everybody come and help me. I need help.
Yeah.
Let me go to my Google. Let me go to Risha. Let me go whoever, right? So
Yeah. More tools you have in your belt, the better.
definitely. So do you have any specific? Well, first of all, you in your journey, did you get initiated?
I initiated first in the Lukumi system to Oshun. And and at the time, I had I had no desire to initiate, right? And at the time, I was told I had to, right? And I had to make a path for my daughter. And I think that was the best thing to tell, because if you would have told me I had to just for me, I probably would have dragged my feet.
Mm,
But at the time I initiated to Oshun, like I feel like that initiation, even though I didn't go into this at the time with that mindset, I feel like that initiation was specifically health related. When I was on the throne, I had an ectopic pregnancy in my fallopian tube, and I did not know it.
mm,
I didn't know it. And long, complicated medical story later, I wasn't able to not lose my fallopian tubes. I was able to not have to have um, actually any hysterectomy or any of those things, which was highly likely because of how long I had waited for it, how long it had occurred. So
mm,
I felt like my initiation saved me from that. It allowed me to keep my womb, my reproductive organs, and I didn't go into it seeking that, right?
mm,
But I did initiate to Oshun, and then later in my journey along with Lukumi, with my daughter, when it was time to prepare her to initiate, they she is way more of a Egungun person. And so Lukumi did at that time did not have a Gungun. So they wanted to send her to Palo.
mm,
And she was young. She was like maybe 10, 11. There was no way I was sending her to a system I knew nothing about with people I didn't know nothing about. And so
Right.
that was a hard no for me. And it became tension in my Lukumi Ile. But the quest to kind of understand her journey with Egungun is how I ended up on the Asheshe side. In
Okay.
addition to the fact that my Lukumi initiation, they had told me if I was a man, they would tell me to initiate to Ifa. But since I was a woman, they was like, you have to marry a man, initiate it to Ifa,
Mm.
or have a son and initiate him to Ifa. And philosophically, it didn't make sense to me that if Ifa is something that I need for my journey here on IA, how could it be attached to what a man initiated to?
Mm.
And they kept telling me, you need to be close to Ifa, you need to be close to Ifa. And philosophically, it didn't make sense that the only way I could do that was through another person. It seemed like very Catholic, like you have to go through the priest.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It seemed that's how it felt. Like it felt very Catholicism. I can't just pray. I need the priest to translate my prayer. I need the priest to sanction the prayer. So that is how I ended up transitioning to the Asheshe side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I definitely appreciate both branches.
Right. Okay. So, do you have any specific stories from divinations that you find interesting you'd like to tell?
So the most I want to say 2023, December 2023, I had taken a group to Bali and I had organized this trip. And when I landed in the airport, I got a call from my niece. My grandmother was in the hospital, and I couldn't just turn around and come back because I was leading this trip and everything was in my name, the everything, right?
Mm.
And nobody had been to Bali before. So I called Baba Cola in the airport.
Mm.
Um, I didn't even get to the resort. And he did divination right away. And he said Iku was present.
Mm.
And so I think that's it. I'm gonna die right here in this airport. I could not, I was devastated. So
Mm.
he marked Ebo for us to be able to push Iku away. And I think it was seven. I had to build seven mounds and knock them down, each one with a stick. That
Mm.
was the Ebo. And so when we got to the resort and it was on the beach, that was the first thing I did. I
Mm.
built those seven mounds and I completed the trip in Bali. I came back and my grandmother lived for another 4 months, right?
Mm.
But it gave me time to be with her every Thursday, Friday, Saturday for
Mm.
those 4 months, for her to, for us to have a million conversations that we needed to have,
Mm.
her to pass on more family stories, her to get everything in order. Um, and even though I wanted to push Iku away forever, right?
Mm.
She was
Mm.
94
Mm.
and am thankful for the 4 months, right?
Right. Right.
It took me a long time to be able to say that because I just went in my mind at the time, push away meant like push away forever. But
Mm.
it wasn't realistic. I just didn't want to let go.
Right. Right.
So I think that was 2023. But then after she transitioned, I had experienced anxiety from like 2019. I totaled my car till 2024 when my grandmother transitioned, and I had never talked to Ifá about it. It
Mm,
was different bouts of just panic. And but after my grandmother passed, the anxiety was so bad, like it was physically in my body.
mm,
And I remember, and so I decided, and I don't know why I never asked Defi about it. It's not logical because I generally ask about big things in my life twice a year. So it wasn't something that I would normally do. So in this particular conversation, I had asked, it's because when I was in Bali, I had asked them in Bali if they had herbs or anything for anxiety, and they didn't understand the word. Like,
mm.
what is anxiety? And I
Wow.
was like, anxiety is like fear and worry, constant. And they were like, fear and worry, even about what? And so they just there was no there our translator didn't have a word for it. So when
Mm,
I came back and I was asking Baba Cola about it, I asked him if there were any herbs for anxiety. And he was like, I want to call home and talk about this. So he got another Babalawo on the phone, and I was explaining to the Babalawo anxiety, right? Fear, 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 worry. And the Babalawo asks like clarifying questions. Does what you worry about come to pass? Does it actually happen? And I said, no, not most of the time. And you still worry. Yes. And the Babalawo said, I need to go do a divination. I'm going to call you back. So he did. He went and did a divination, and he called me back and he said, "You don't have anxiety, you have egg bay."
mm.
And I was like, "What?" What? No, I have a medical definition. No, but he said there's some disturbance from your egg bay. They're trying to get your attention. You don't have anxiety. And so I had to receive the egg bay pot. But the
Mm,
thing that was I've been in this tradition a long time. I've been initiated, I done experienced all kinds of things that people might call strange. And still, this was very strange to me. I
mm,
had to receive the egbe pot. They sent it from Nigeria. I got it from Baba Cola. And then there was a ritual that I had to do. I had to sleep not in my bed. I had to sleep somewhere else for 7 days while they did this ritual in the forest in Nigeria.
mm,
And one night when I'm in the guest bedroom, I like physically felt the heaviness lift.
mm,
I felt it lift. And Baba, I got so scared. I
mm,
started crying because
mm,
I didn't know what was going on. I was terrified. And I went to pick up my phone to call Baba Cola, and a text came through. The ritual has begun. Make sure you don't sleep in your room. And
mm.
so I didn't place the call because I'm like, oh, this is what I'm feeling.
Right.
Um, but I haven't felt peace like that.
Wow.
And when they did it, it was so peaceful. I was terrified.
Wow.
I,
But you
I was,
didn't.
I didn't know what to do. I'm laying there, um, and I haven't felt anxiety like that
Wow.
since that ritual. And now, like sometimes now I can feel like the tremors of it, and then I can go to Egg Bay and give
Wow.
them what I'm supposed to give them. But that peace that night, I've never felt anything like that.
Wow. That's amazing. Do you think when it happened, your analytical mind was preventing you from accepting it as easily?
Um, I don't, I think that in the moment I was so gripped by I was so gripped by fear that I don't know. I really don't know. In the end, like Baba, I was shocked at my own shock, right?
Hmm.
Because I've been in the tradition so long. Why is this so shocking to me? Why am I? I've had a million of experiences that would seem, otherworldly or not odd. But I don't know if it was my analytical mind as much as I was scared of the feeling that I was feeling that I had never felt before.
Mm.
I didn't, but maybe the analytical part was I didn't know what that was, right?
Right.
I
That's
didn't that yeah, the analytical part, I don't know what this is. Like,
right. That's what I meant. Like
yeah,
the need to understand it logically, to understand things
yes,
logically sometimes can cause those kind of things if something like that is happening and you're like, wait a minute, I got to understand this. What's going on?
yep,
It's kind of like when you get an injury and you go to the doctor. So it might be your foot or something, and I'll find myself kind of babying it until I go to the doctor. Once I know what it is, okay, well, it's just this, I can deal with it. Then you can move
yeah,
on and it's not as bad anymore. But when you're in the unknown phase, you're thinking, well, I don't want to do this and make it worse or harm this, so I'm just going to be
yeah. Because it was that part is absolutely true. Because it was so, I was like, is my soul leaving my body? Am I dying? Like, what is this lift?
right.
Right? What is this lift? Um, and I was terrified. I was.
Wow.
But it's been one of the best decisions I made. The From that accident on 2019 to 2024, when that happened, all of the anxiety that I felt, I'm like, those were wasted years. I
Right.
have no idea why it took me so long to ask Ifa about it.
Mm, mm. Maybe you just felt like you could handle it yourself.
Yeah, and it was like it's anxiety. I had my talk. So much happened back to back that logically I was like, it seems logical that I would be anxious. I totaled my car. COVID happened. I got a divorce. My grandmother transitioned. So anxiety seemed like a logical diagnosis. Um, I just and now I have to keep at the forefront of my brain to not wait to take things to the mat.
Right. Right. Okay. Let me see. We have a little over 7 minutes of saying here.
Okay.
Now, if you have, do you want to give another story you could tell now, or do you want to try to close it and restart, or how do you want to
Mm.
do
Um, I could tell stories for days. Like
it?
I could tell stories for days.
I mean, we could
Um,
close this one and then restart it
okay.
because I only have 40 minutes on here.
Okay. But I will say, like in these last, I think the I don't want to like downplay anybody else's uh divining skills, but I will say, as someone who's been in the tradition for a while, when I started receiving consultations with Baba Cola, I don't even think when I started initially I had this as a practice, but he would say to me, have goals, right? Like your Ori should be involved in the divination process. So you should have goals. You should have things that you are trying to accomplish. And that way it will help you reflect on whether or not the divination is ushering your life forward.
Mm,
And prior to that, I just used to sit on the mat for my reading of the year and say, tell me what my year is going to look like, or something like that, like
Right.
a crystal ball, like what do you see? Right. And that philosophical shift, not what do you see, but this is where I want to be. And can you help me get there? And sometimes the answer is no, you shouldn't be going there.
Right.
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 But I'm still involved in the process and in planning my life. And I'm co-planning my life with spiritual forces that are there to guide me. I
Hmm.
think that fundamentally has shifted, it's shifted my practice, but it's also shifted how the Orisha and Egungun are operating in my life.
Yeah, that's very profound statement because it goes back to Ori in my opinion.
Mhm.
A lot of people may not understand Ori correctly. And so if you understand it correctly, that it's not destiny per se, it's the good things or goals or places you may want to go in life or you should or that you chose before that you want to go to. And Ifá divination is to help get you and keep you on that path, those paths to going there. So if you're off path and you want to do something and Ifá's like, well, no, that's not best for you, that's not the way to go. Or yeah, you're moving in the right direction, you get Ejiobe, keep doing what you're doing with the people you're doing it. You're doing with the right people,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah,
So it is kind of it will clarify it for you better to look at it like this is where I'm going. These divinations can help me go there. Are they helping me get to those things?
yeah. Yep. And it's why I love the GPS metaphor,
Hmm.
because and now what I say when Baba Cola uses that metaphor, that Ifá is the GPS, so it helps you to get where you want to go. But now I say to people, like, because you still have to have somewhere you want to go. You
Right.
can't just pick up the GPS and be like, drive. You got to put an address in there. You
Right.
have to put an address in there. And I do feel like part of at least for me, the Christian holdover of being passively a recipient, right? A
Hmm.
passive recipient of information, of direction. I, even in transitioning into Lukumi and then later as Sheshe, I do think I brought that practice with me, right? That I
Hmm.
was a passive recipient. I treated it like tarot cards or like any other thing you see, like tell me what is going to happen to my life, right?
Right. Right.
Tell me what is going to happen. And it's been the philosophy and Ori and all of those things have helped me make a fundamental shift. And it shows up in really significant ways.
That's great. All right. So, do you have any other
Story.
stories?
I was thinking about there was a time, so in 2020, um, I think it might have been the second time, it was the first time I had gotten a consultation from Baba Cola. And my Aluo at the time was in Nigeria. And so that January, I went to Baba Cola and I got a consultation. He told me, you're going to he literally said, you're going to be betrayed this year by someone younger than you. But if you make sure you have good character, everything will be fine. And he told me the story of Obatala and the Calabash monkey, and they
Mm.
were friends. And Obatala would have these parties, but everybody wanted him to drink at the party, and he didn't drink. So he started carrying a flask with Echo in it, trying to front like he was drinking, so people would stop asking him. And he thought the Calabash monkey was his friend, but the Calabash monkey snitched and went and told Olodumare, yo, Batala is getting drunk at these parties. And so Olodumare, called Obatala and was like, come explain yourself. But Obatala got a consultation before he went and was advised to take the calabash and I mean the flask. And so when he went, he took the flask. When Olodumare asked him, there was echo and it all resolved itself. So that was the story he told me. And because they were friends, he said it might be something like at work or, in some, but he told me, so make sure at work you always doing things the way you're supposed to be doing them.
Mhm.
I was a perfect employee for like 5 months.
Mm.
And that was January 2020. COVID, we went into quarantine March, uh, or maybe May. But during COVID, I went to the store, came home, and my husband at the time had completely moved out.
Mm.
One trip to the grocery store. And I thought of the story because he was younger than me.
Mm.
And he was Nigerian and had received citizenship like a couple of months before.
Mm.
So it all came like it just all made sense. So I called Baba Cola immediately and I told him I think I'm experiencing the betrayal. But part of why I'm telling this story is because when Baba Cola gave me that divination and he said, if you have good character, it was the way I interpreted it. I thought if I had good character, I wasn't going to experience the betrayal.
Oh, okay.
Right? Even
Right.
though that's not what he said.
Hmm.
He said, "You will be betrayed this year." My thing was, I could avoid it if I
Oh,
had good
okay.
character. If I do my abode, if I have good character, I could avoid it. And I called him because I wasn't avoiding it,
Mm.
right? And he said, "Let's divine and figure out what's going on first." And he did. And then he told me the story of the Okwele who had come to Earth to try and unseat the Ikin.
Mm.
And he was like, this was what he always intended to do. That was the Okwele's mission. She was like, the Akin is seasoned, more established. The Okwele was younger. And so even though and so the way I interpreted the first divination was wrong, but I do feel like having the information from the first one helped me to really understand and accept what I was experiencing,
Hmm.
and that also helped to move toward the healing, because there were so many people in my life who loved me and had really great intentions when they were like, let's find him and slash his tires, bust out his windows, or even the people who were like, well, maybe he'll be back.
Mm.
All of those arguments I could easily let go because this is what Ifá is saying it is. He ain't coming back. It ain't no, this is what he meant to do.
Hmm.
It didn't, it saved me from asking myself a million questions like, what did I do? Was it
Mm.
an argument? Was there something I didn't understand? It saved me from asking myself all of those questions
Hmm.
because this is what he intended to do, even though I had interpreted it completely wrong in the beginning.
Mm. But you were it came to clarity later.
Yeah, yeah. And it was painful. It was a hurtful clarity. And Baba Cola is a lawyer.
Right.
He was like, be strong. Be strong. Lock the bank accounts. Change the locks now.
Right. Just
He
just
went,
do what you need to do.
yep, yep. It was
Wow.
very painful, but um, I swear, I would not have come on the other end of that healing journey the way I did without IFA, because I think, sometimes to protect ourselves from experiencing the pain, we tell ourselves stories, or we allow ourselves to hold on to things that maybe we shouldn't have.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that could be a very painful thing. And what's also very painful about those kind of things is like what Baba Cola always says, it's all up to us. Like he says, the Risha and everybody else can help you, but our journey is up to us. We control our essay, we control our actions, we control the choices we make. Even if they're presented, if SU presents this one or that one, we choose, we're the ones that choose. So, whenever we do things that we feel later are mistakes, it hurts on a lot of different levels, just going through the process of the loss, going through the process of, wow, I made a mistake, or
Hmm.
I did something wrong, and I have to get better, etc. There's a lot of different levels of things we have to come through, but at the end of the day, and I think that's one of the things that is most difficult for people who are new to come into this religion, because in Christianity and those kind of religions, it's all about you have a savior. I can just I'm going to be saved. I can just sit back and do nothing and just say, I accept
Yep.
this
Yep.
this God is my Lord and Savior, and I'm going to heaven and everything's going to be good. And everybody, we all go through that every night. And like when burdens get real heavy, we're like, "Dang, I just wish somebody rescued me from this, or I wish I would just hit the lottery, or I wish, these problems would just magically disappear." But in reality, we have to deal with them. And in this religion, in my experience, it reinforces that. It tells us, look, it's all up to you. You're gonna have to do the work. You can, you can get help, but at the end of the day, it's all up to you, like Baba Cola always says.
Yep. There's a Babalao, Baba Alberto Ibaye. He used to divine for me in Brooklyn. And he would always say, Orisha does not make a white wall pink. They will help you get some paint. They'll help you get a brush, but
Hmm.
they're not going to magically make that white wall pink. And it's a paradigm shift,
Right, it
right?
is.
But even in Christianity, they say faith, I think like faith without work is
Right.
void, right? But even though it's said, I don't know if that's fundamentally how people practice and believe.
I don't either. And it's not enforced, because
Yeah.
I've saw pastors on TV before go down this long list of, you can be a goody two shoes, you can go and volunteer and do work. It's not going to help you go to heaven. You have to accept Jesus. If I don't care
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
do it,
yeah,
you don't have to
yeah,
do any of that stuff. Just accept Jesus.
yeah.
And so that's telling the person, well, I don't have to live with Iwa Pueli. I don't have to live with
Right,
good character. I don't have to
right,
try to do things for people. All I have to do is do this, and I'll
right.
be accepted. And now they do have that saying, like you said, faith without works is dead. I don't know if that's actually in the Bible or where they got that,
Yeah, yeah,
but that's contradictory. Well, I don't know if it is. It says, what are the works? They don't define them.
right,
But then you come later and say the works are immaterial. If you don't accept Jesus, the works are
right,
irrelevant. You're
right.
still not going anywhere. You see what I mean? So that's
Yeah,
saying it, but then diminishing it at the same time.
yeah,
Whereas, at least that's the way I see it.
yeah, yeah. It is a paradigm shift and it can feel, the shift can feel like overwhelming because it's responsibility.
Right.
To like you responsible for you, not the devil made me do it, or you're
Right.
responsible for you. And
Right.
that can feel overwhelming sometimes. I understand the propensity to be like, I don't want to be responsible for me. I don't want to do it. I don't want to
Right.
do it.
Right. Because we all get tired. We're like, oh
Yeah.
goodness, can somebody help me with
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. I know, yeah. So when I first came into the tradition, initially, I read like a Shango for years. Every every single time I sat and got a Dilagoon reading, the Odu was Obara Meiji. So it was
Mm.
Shango, Shango, Shango. It was so much so that I'm like, I don't even know why I'm still paying for this. Cause I know what they're gonna say. I know who it is. Um, and then when I went to get my head marked, Obara Meiji came and they asked would I initiate to Shango, and they said no. And
Mm.
I started crying.
Mm.
I was bawling. It felt like such rejection, you
Mm.
know, like how come he don't want me? And it was Baba Jose Manuel who marked my head. And when I started crying, he was like, oh my God, she's got to be in Oshun. These damn tears. And they were like, well, should it be Oshun? And they say yes. But the way in which people had described Oshun to me, I was like, that's so not me. And Lukumi has this idea that your initiates, the Orisha you initiate to is somehow reflective of your personality, right?
Mm.
So it's
Mm.
almost like your zodiac sign or whatever. And it just didn't, I'm not femme fatale. I don't giggle. I don't have any of the ways in which they describe Oshun. So it didn't seem to fit. And then I initiated to her, and one of the women told me, she was like, oh, you're so lucky. You're initiated to Oshun. All you have to do is go to her and beg her for extra money for a dress or extra money to get your nails done. I'm telling you, I've been initiated to Oshun for 20 something years. I do not have that relationship with her at all.
Mm.
She ain't no dress giver. you know, my relationship to her is fundamentally about my self-development.
Right.
She is the hardest um Arisha that I have a relationship with about me developing me,
Mm.
you know. Um, it don't never have nothing to do with like anything other than that. I don't get dresses, I don't get shoes. And so it's just not my experience
Mm.
with her. My experience with her is very much um, grow up,
Right.
grow up, master control over your choices,
Hmm.
your selections, who you choose to spend time with, who you befriend, what you paying attention to, and what you not. Um, that has been who she is, and I'm not complaining. I feel like she has forced me to grow up.
Right. Okay. So how would you compare the depiction? I know it's a different topic of Oshun
hmm
in Lukumi versus Ishesha.
I mean, I think about this all. I don't know how they um, ended up with such different depictions of the Orisha. I don't know if other people, but I feel like that with Oshun, the Lukumi and the Sheshe descriptions are further apart than any other Orisha. I don't know. I could just feel that way because personally, I'm initiated to her.
Hmm.
But the way people have described Oshun to me and Lukumi, like she is the youngest. So she is uh, like young party girl or young mother trying to hold it together. And Yemoja is the seasoned, like elder mother, has it going on. And Oshun is flirty, coquettish, And in Isheshe, Oshun, like we know her from her Oriki. We know her from the Oriki poems, the songs, the stanzas in Odu Ifa. She is a grown, accomplished woman, right?
Right, right,
She is grown, she is accomplished, she is highly effective, highly organized, the runner of commerce, so I'm not sure. My theory is all, and she's powerful, right?
very,
She
very,
is powerful. Uh, and she's powerful in her own right, not because of somebody else. She is powerful. And so I have a theory that's just a theory that I cannot prove. But I feel like culturally, if you have Oshun as like quintessential female womanhood, right? Power, the explanation is how do you where is the what is the origins of women's power, right?
hmm
And I think in Isheshe, the origins is of her power is her being able to command her power,
right,
right? It is this innate energy that she can command her power. In Isheshe, it's almost like the origin of her power is seduction. I mean,
in Lukumi, yeah,
In Lukumi, the origin of her power is seduction and what she can get other people to do because of seduction. And I think those are cultural shifts of
hmm
how you perceive women to be powerful.
right, right, yeah, it's a major difference because remember when they came down to set up IA, she was the only female, and none of the other males could even do it without her
Yes.
participating in permission. That's how powerful she is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know.
And um like I used to think about that story a lot, especially like as a writer, right? That it could have gone so many different ways. I also think about this as a woman. She did not choose to engage and fight with them and let me tell you who I am and
Right.
how dare you ignore me. There was a dignity in I'm gonna just take my toys and go home.
hmm
I don't have to convince you.
Right.
You will experience my absence.
Definitely.
I don't
Definitely.
have to sell it to you. I don't have to beg you. I'm going to just take my toys and go home.
Right.
And there's such a dignity in that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, Oshun, and let alone the power of the IJ that she's over. So I mean, people just ignore Oshun to me spiritually is the most powerful, one of the most powerful Orisha,
Hmm.
period. Because even all the other Orishas struggle to overcome the power of the IJ. She has, Oshun has a lot of power. So yeah, she is diminished, in my opinion, a lot the way they look at her in Lukumi, but yeah, Oshun is no joke, right?
And I think about it because even before I transitioned to Isheshe, I just didn't have that experience with her,
Right.
right? In sitting with her, in praying with her, in cooking Adimu for her, the relationship that I developed with her did not reflect what the way in which she was described to me.
Mm,
Even before I knew another story, that it still makes me wonder, like, it just makes me wonder because I've never had, but I don't know, like she gave me what I needed. Maybe people need different things.
right. Okay. All right. So, do you have any other divination stories you want to tell before we?
I
I don't want
think
to hold you
that's
all day.
I think that's it. I think the last one, the the reason why I wanted to like end on that one is because I didn't get it right. But
Okay.
and because I think when we're getting consultations, a variety of things happen, right? You're
Hmm.
engaged, the Babalawo will, of course, he will open, but he's going to tell you stories. And then you have to apply those stories to your life,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I think, especially um, in the US, sometimes that application process can be a challenge.
Right.
Uh, Sometimes the stories are so allegorical
Hmm.
that you're like, what? What?
Right.
The chicken, the this, the that. And so, oh, but I will say one more. So, in going through this divorce, um, I divined through all the processes. And when I got to the final part, my last divination, Baba Cola, had told me the story of the Igege bird. And she was in the forest and she was there with her little babies. And she overheard the inhabitants of the world and they were plotting on her. And she went and she got a consultation and she did the abo. So when they went to move on her, um, they surrounded her and actually shot each other. But when he told me that story, he said, and this is about applying it to real life.
Hmm.
He had said the inhabitants of the world were not trying to kill her because it was personal. This is just what they do. They out there doing what they do. And there are people who will be out in this world doing what they do. And that could include like injuring you because that is what they do.
Right.
And he said that she had overheard it. So he told me to be very careful in listening to, listening and seeing if there's any information that I didn't pay attention to. But but when I had told another initiate this story, she said also in this day and age, you should Google your ex-husband's name every now and then because information is just going to be circulating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so about 6 months later, following these directions, like me and my analytical self, okay, I was like, I'll Google his name every 3 months, right? So following these directions, about 6 months later, I Googled his name and found out. Now, we already divorced. We got a divorce in Nigeria. I'm already divorced. I was divorced by the time, and then he showed back up wanting to talk, but I was
Mm.
already divorced. So 6 months later, I Google his name and I find out just from Google that he had filed a divorce against me in the Bronx and
Mm.
said that he had served me papers on a weekend that I knew it wasn't true because I just happened to not be here. It was February, it was President's Day weekend. So I knew I was away that weekend. Um, and it was just because of that that I found out that he had this whole fraudulent thing going on. So I had
Mm.
to respond to the court because I don't know what he was planning on doing, but I didn't want him to get like a no fault divorce. And then I didn't know what the financial implications of that might be.
Hmm.
Um, but I got to respond to the court just because I found it on Google
Wow.
because of that consultation that was like, you're just gonna find out something by accident.
Mm. Wow. It's
So
amazing.
it is how we take the information and how we apply the information.
Right.
Sometimes, and it's not always easy. It's not always easy, but it's also a learning process. You get better over time.
Right. Oh, definitely. You get all of it is over time. You develop your
Hmm.
relationship with the Orisha, with the Gungun over time. You, like you said, you know when they're there and you could feel them and you could know the little idiosyncrasies of, like when I'm working with Ifá and I'm sometimes okay, I can tell Ifá's not in the mood to discuss this thing today. So, or, you know, or he's right there. He's okay. Or he gives
Mm-hmm.
an emphatic answer. So I can tell sometimes by how the Opuele falls if I'm getting an emphatic yes or no
Mm-hmm.
versus, what I mean? And so it's like you kind of you might ask the first time and you get an answer and you say, "Are you sure?" And then all of a sudden, boom, it's emphatic. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
from way from Ofun to Ogbe. It's
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Ogbe Falls. I
Yeah.
said no. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I be like, no, and then hell no.
Hell no.
Yeah.
That's what I said. If I was saying
Yep.
hell no sometimes, okay, I get it. I won't ask
Yep.
again.
I ain't asking no more.
I'll leave that again. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed this. These were great stories that you told today. I think people will really get a lot from your stories. And so that's it for the day. I thank
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Yeah, thanks for
It gives
joining.
me it gave me such a time to think about how this impacts me. But thank you.
Well, those impacts will also help others, I believe.
Yeah, I'm
That's
hoping
part of
so.
what I'm doing here. All
Yep.
right.
All
Okay.
right.
All right.
Have a
Well, you
blessed
take it.
day, Baba.
You too.
All
Take
right,
care.
peace.
Peace. So thank you for joining me today on another episode of Talking Ifa with me, Babalawo Salako, and my guest today, Dr. Akanke Washington. I hope you got a lot from that, and I hope you join me for the next episodes. And I also ask that you subscribe so that you can get notifications when I have new episodes coming up. Ireo Odabo.